is the International Development Finance Club, so a club of 20 plus development finance institutions that are particularly active on climate. Just to introduce myself, Clémence Vidal de la Blache, I'm the country head of AFD, the French Development Bank, here in Egypt. And I'll be moderating the panel this evening. It's a hybrid panel with both colleagues online and then here with us in the room. Maybe I'll take this opportunity. So can you confirm that the colleagues online can hear us? Yeah? Okay, great. Super. So I'll just say a few words of introduction before calling the panelists, and hopefully it will get people interested in the conversation, and we'll have a bit of an audience. Just to remind you also that this is live streamed, if I'm not mistaken, so there's people joining online as well. So just to set the scene, it's a few statistics that we've heard if you've been part of these conversations over the last few days, but that are important to say over and over again. The MENA region is one of the most affected by climate change impacts all across the globe. You know, it plays out in different ways, and I'm sure the presentations will unpack some of that. With temperatures rising 20% faster than the rest of the world, sea level rising, saline intrusions, impact on agriculture. So really quite a number of impacts, and that are, of course, as always, interplaying or exacerbating existing vulnerabilities. The MENA region already, without taking climate change into account, is one of the most water scarce in the world, with every single country already displaying water availabilities that are lower than the water stress threshold defined by the UN. So that kind of sets the scene for our conversation today. And given that adaptation is a big focus of the COP discussions, I mean, obviously every year, and this year in particular, we felt that it was the right time to focus on water and wastewater challenges and seeing how they're instrumental to the development, the growth, and the resilience of the region. A few words about AFD. We are France's bilateral development bank. A very, very strong climate champion. Last year we financed 6 billion euros of projects in climate finance, and a third of that was in adaptation, which is something that we're very proud of. We still have some progress to do, but it's on the right track. So given the growing and the justified attention to these challenges in the region, I'm glad to moderate tonight's conversation about water and wastewater through an adaptation lens and resilience lens in the Middle East and North Africa, with, I think, the most interesting title that I've seen all week. If climate change were a shark, the water would be the teeth. And I'm going to say, actually, it's so I want to congratulate Stéphane, because I think you're kind of at the origin of this title, and I'll take a step further and say, you know, if we're having this conversation, we're actually in the middle of Jaws, because the idea is really to focus on all the teeth, to focus on the greater water cycle, to really have a conversation about holistic water security. So not just talking about drinking water, irrigation, wastewater, but also management of coastal zones, for example. So really the looking at the entire cycle. So maybe just to finish, to say that this event was co-organized with our KFW colleagues. KFW and AFD have a long-standing partnership and friendship, I would even say, across the globe, and specifically in the region, where we are co-financing projects in every single country, like in Morocco, with a program to reduce water sector losses, or in Egypt with the improvement of water and wastewater services with two successive phases. I want to highlight that we'll have on the panel experts from AFD and KFW, but also representative of public institutions from the MENA region, Mohamed Ali Turki from Tunisia, and Mr. Hamid Tafiki from Morocco joining online, who will present concrete example with a practitioner's lens of their adaptation activities, whether in terms of flood protection or integrated water resource management. So I'll stop there. Thank you for bearing with me with these few introductory words, and I'll hand the floor over to Barbara Schnell, who is Director of Sector Policy at KFW.
Well, thank you, Clémence. Hello, everyone. I'm extremely glad and thankful that you have invited us to co-organize this event. And you already explained the background of this very interesting and illustrative title. And yeah, the Middle East, North African region is really affected by water scarcity. I've recently seen a map, and the bright red center of the map was the Middle East and North African region. And it's pretty much also specified by a comparison. Jordan has 3% of the water resources per capita when compared to Spain. And Spain, for a German, Northern European, is a very water scarce country. So I found this comparison also quite impressive, and it illustrates the challenge we are faced with. And it's not only water scarcity, it's also more frequent flooding, which affects the region quite heavily. And we will actually learn also about some programs which try to battle that, which try to mitigate that risk. So KFW, the German bilateral development bank, we're taking this very seriously. So 75% of our big water portfolio over the last 5 years is actually also focusing on adaptation to climate change. And we have a commitment of 3.9 billion euros altogether over the last 5 years. And the Middle East North African region is our most important region for the water sector. And more than a third of our commitments over the past 5 years in the water sector went to the Middle East and Northern African region. And Clémence, you already said that we co-finance in many instances. So much for my introductory words, and now I pass on the mic to you. And then, yeah, I'm looking forward to the session. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So I'll call the panelists that are in the room to join the floor. I'll get to the introduction of each panelist then, but please, if you, Atika and Mohamed, if you can join, and Barbara, if you want to sit with them as well, most welcome. And we're gonna just face the shark and dive right in with our colleague Dr. Stefan Gramel. Stefan works for the Competence Center of KFW in the water sector and has more than 20 years of professional experience in international water projects with a focus on the region. So I'll hand you the floor over, Stefan, to present KFW's strategic priorities for support of water and wastewater in the MENA region, which, as Barbara just mentioned, is a very strong geographical focus of your portfolio. Stefan, over to you.
Sharm el-Sheikh. Greetings from Frankfurt to Sharm el-Sheikh. So thank you very much for your introduction. As you said, I work for the Competence Center Infrastructure, Water and Nature Resources of KFW. And the topic of my speech will be KFW's experience with adaptation projects in the water sector of the MENA region. So coming to the next slide, just an overview about the presentation, some words about KFW. Then I will focus on water and climate situation in the MENA region. I will give an overview about project examples from KFW portfolio. And finally, I will focus also on a reuse project in Jordan. Barbara already mentioned that Jordan is extreme water scarce. So with the next slide, some words about KFW. What is KFW? It's Germany's promotional and development bank. It is nationally and internationally active. KfW has excellent ratings. For example, on the right side, you have the AAA ratings from Moody's or Standard & Poor's, and that allows KfW to work with loans with excellent conditions and also with grants. And some words about the development bank of KfW. The commitments in 2021 were 8.6 billion euro, and KfW Development Bank is mainly mandated by German federal government and the EU. And on the next slide, I come to the topic of the climate threats to water in the MENA region. As Clémence and Barbara already mentioned, the MENA region is the most scarce region in the world. And Barbara already mentioned this topic with Jordan, that one Jordanian has only 3% of the water resources in comparison with the Spanish population. And that is so extreme because we all know that Spain is not a water-rich country. Climate change is intensified by water scarcity. To quote here IPCC, the last IPCC report of 2021, approximately 80 to 100 million people more will be exposed to water stress already by 2025, and that under the condition that already the situation is extreme in this area. What does it mean? How are the effects? On one side, there are high risks for agriculture. Just an example from Morocco, we faced a drought in 2020, which led to crop losses and required record imports of wheat. This is one example how that affects the area in agriculture. Another effect of climate change or water scarcity in general in the MENA region are risks for the drinking water supply. To give an example regarding that, the last summer in the capital of Jordan, in Amman, large parts faced the situation not to have municipal water supply, no water supply for several weeks during summer. This is really hard situation. And not to forget, on the right side, the threats of climate change regarding seacoast on one side and floods through precipitations. And then coming on the next slide to project examples from KfW side. The first part is water reuse. To work efficiently with water to reuse is one important topic, one important pillar for us. On the left side, there's a project from Jordan. I will highlight that at the end. In the middle, you see a project from Palestine, Nablus West. This is the first larger reuse system in Palestine. A main part of that is the wastewater treatment plant with approximately 150,000 people. It includes also filtration and disinfection. Why? To get the reuse standard, to have the high reuse standard. And what is done afterwards with the water? It is used in agriculture. Having a look to Tunisia on the right side, with the support from KfW side, 30 wastewater treatment plants were financed or implemented in the last 10 to 20 years. And a large share of these wastewater treatment plants has the capacity and has the technology to treat it to reuse water so that water can be reused. Currently in Jordan, we are engaged in a feasibility study which assesses the reuse potential for the whole area, for the whole country. Having a look to Morocco, also there we co-finance a large number of wastewater treatment plants, and parts of them have the capacity and the technology to treat water on a standard to reuse that. So with the next slide, we come to the topic of the reduction of water losses in drinking water networks. We all know that the losses in drinking water networks in developing and emerging countries are quite high. We're talking about a range of 30 to 50%. 30 to 50% is lost of the water in the drinking water networks. And that for sure is a situation which is not acceptable. There we have to do something that is absolutely important to be more efficient here in a water scarce area. And that is the basis for some projects or numbers of projects. On the left side, you see a project about Morocco. This has an amount of roughly 100 million euro together with AFD. And it focuses network rehabilitation on one side, the implementation of pressure zones, water meters, just some examples of the measures in this project. In Tunisia, and on the middle side, we focus or are engaged on a program for the reduction of water losses
with 50 million euro. And on the right side, you find Jordan. And in Jordan, we see high levels of water losses with 40 to 50%. And that presented the basis to start a program for the reduction of water losses with innovative approaches, which is currently under implementation. And we from KFW side also think about the participation in a planned national program for the reduction of water losses. And here we speak about an amount, an envisaged amount of 1.5 billion euro, and that's quite a huge amount for a country like Jordan. With the next slide, we come to the topic of desalination. Desalination is in extreme water scarce countries like in the MENA region, an important technology. One example for that on the left side in Jordan, we tackle we engaged in the desalination of groundwater, brackish groundwater, so groundwater with some content of salt, which cannot be used without desalination. We also engaged as co-financiers in a huge project about seawater desalination near Aqaba, also together with AFD, for example. And that project will have a capacity of 300 million cubic meter per year, which is huge, which is a huge amount. And it includes also a conveyor pipeline to Oman, which is also a huge installment, this pipeline from the south of the country to the middle of the country. In Tunisia, in the middle part of the slide, you see that we are very engaged in the financing of the first seawater desalination plant in that country. It was finalized in 2018, and it has capacity of 50,000 cubic meter per day. And there's another seawater desalination plant in Sarat, which is currently under implementation, also with 50,000 cubic meter per day. And not to forget the last point, there's also a large program for desalination of brackish groundwater. And coming to the right side, Morocco, there we talk about the project in Sidi Ifni, the seawater desalination plant with 8,000 cubic meter per day. And on the next slide, we tackle, or we ask the question, how is it with agriculture? It's important to underline that agriculture is the largest consumer of water in the world. Most of us know that 70% of the water in the world is used in agriculture. And in developing and emerging countries, that's even more extreme. And therefore, this area of water consumers is so important to work efficiently. What does it mean for us? From our side, on the left side, you see a project from Egypt, canal rehabilitation and cleaning to work more efficiently with the irrigation water. On the middle side, you find the example from Tunisia, the irrigation modernization of farmer systems. And that leads to the situation to have a higher productivity here to three to four times. What does it mean here, productivity? It means the relation of agricultural product as output and water as input. So be efficient with water. That's the important thing here. And on the right side, you find the example from Jordan. We're tackling the Jordan Valley, which is intensively agriculturally used. And there we are engaged in the rehabilitation of irrigation networks on one side and the modernization of the main water carrier, the so-called King Abdallah Channel. And the King Abdallah Channel is a huge channel which was implemented in the 60s. And the estimations at the moment say this is losing 10 million cubic meter per year. And that is the basis why we engaged in this context. So coming to the next slide, water storage and water transport. In Tunisia, for example, there's a project which includes the implementation of 3 storage dams in the north and water transfer from the north to the water scarce center and the south of the country. And these dams also allow a kind of flood protection in this area. In Egypt, on the right side, we are engaged in the system of the Aswad Dam, which ensures irrigation of approximately 690,000 hectares. And that means also that there are 100,000 smallholders, small farmers, which get water from the system. And here it's also clear how important this topic is also for job creation and the stabilization of jobs. And the system of Aswad Dam also allows water regulation and flood protection and energy production. So coming to the last slide, which shows a bit the typology of the projects that we have in our portfolio. Coastal and stormwater protection, one side, measurement networks on the other side. On the left side, there's an example from Tunisia, and I don't want to say any word about that because Monsieur, we have the pleasure that Monsieur Torqui will explain about this project in much more details in the next presentation. In the middle, you see the case of Gaza, and the photo shows one event of stormwater, and we've seen that quite often during the last years. And that led to the decision to go for a program from our side to protect against stormwater, which means, for example, stormwater infiltration, pipelines, pump stations. These are elements of this system. And on the right side, you find a project, the so-called Hydrometeorological Measurement Network in Jordan, which was implemented from KFW side the last years. It's a bit another type of project, as it's a measurement project. And with this project, I would say you try to get the fever curve of climate change in the water area in Jordan to understand where are we with regarding climate change and where are we with our water resources. What did it mean, or what does it consist of, the project? Measurement stations on one side, the linkage with computer-based systems on the other side, and the possibility to analyze trends, taking into consideration climate change effects. So just to understand where are we against climate change effects. And with that, I would like to come to the next slide and start the last minutes to talk about a project in the north of Jordan. It is a reuse project. Water from wastewater treatment plants is treated to a level so that it can be used in agriculture. On the next slide, you see a bit more about the project. On the right side, there's Irbit on the eastern side, and the yellow marks are 3 wastewater treatment plants, which are connected, which were the implementation or the rehabilitation of these treatment plants were financed from KFW. They have a capacity of 17 million cubic meter per year. Part of the project is also a new transport pipeline down to the Jordan Valley. On the left side, on the western side, you see the Jordan Valley. As I already mentioned, Jordan Valley is really intensively agriculturally used, and the northern part, which we tackle here, still uses fresh water. And with this project of reuse, it's possible to give the farmers reclaimed water from the reuse system, which releases water which can be used then for municipal water supply. This is the idea behind. Not to forget another part, the hydropower station with 2 megawatt, and also final treatment, blending, and storage installations at the border to Jordan Valley. And on the next slide, you find a bit more the results and the outputs of the project. For sure, it is water, additional water at the moment, 12 million cubic meter per year treated, and the capacity 17 million cubic meter per year. Energy-wise, it's estimated that this system will produce 18 million kilowatt hour per year. And having a look to the cost on the right side, we have prime cost of 0.3 to 0.4 euro per cubic meter, only for the parts which are related to this reuse system. And that includes investment, operation, and maintenance. Let's focus, or let's compare that with other resources which have been developed by this extreme water scarce country, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. For example, the DC aquifer, the fossil DC aquifer was developed 10-15 years ago, and the cost here around 1 euro per cubic meter. As I already mentioned, a huge desalination project is under development at the moment at the Red Sea, and here we talk about costs which are clearly above 1.5 euro per cubic meter. So if we compare the cost we see with this 0.3 to 0.4 euro per cubic meter, we are clearly on the cost-efficient side of new water resources in Jordan. And so we can say the reuse project makes sense from the side of ecology, from water resources, but also from the side of economy. And with that, I would like to say thank you for your interest in this relevant topic, and hand over back to Sharm el-Sheikh.
course, through your presentation, the breadth of the expertise by KFW, but also of projects financed by KFW. But kind of bouncing off on your last project, what strikes me is how project contribute to mitigation goals through the energy production, of course through through the reuse of water to adaptation goals of Jordan, and also in terms of financial, in the benchmark that you were giving, the financial incentives also to reuse these non-conventional water sources. So I'll now hand over the floor to our second panelist. The idea was to showcase different facets of this kind of greater water cycle and how it contributes to adaptation. And so, as we said in the introductory remarks, one of the main risks in the region is obviously flood risks, including from on coastal areas from surge, etc. So we just wanted to take the opportunity of having Mr. Mohamed Ali Turki with us, who is the National Coordinator of the Program of Protection of Tunisian Shores, PPLT. You've served in different positions at APAL, the Shore Protection and Management Agency, and are now head of its technical department. And so I just wanted to ask, in terms of the program of coastal protection, what lessons do you draw from its implementation, and can you walk us through a little bit of the implementation challenges and the lessons that you see for other countries in the region? Vous allez parler en français, et Atika will be translating for English speakers in the audience.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à tout le monde. Excusez-moi, je vais parler en français. Et je vais vous présenter ce qu'on a fait en Tunisie dans le cadre de l'adaptation à la résilience au changement climatique avec la KFW, en partenariat avec la KFW. C'est entre le gouvernement tunisien et le gouvernement fédéral allemand.
Thank you very much. I will present he will present in French the project or the program of adaptation and resilience in Tunisia, which has been implemented under a partnership between the French government and the Tunisian government.
Donc nous, Agence de protection et d'aménagement du littoral, nous travaillons sous tutelle du ministère de l'Environnement tunisien, en partenariat avec la KFW qui représente le BMZ et le gouvernement fédéral allemand. Nous avons monté un programme de protection du littoral tunisien contre l'érosion marine, financé par la KFW et en contrepartie par le budget national tunisien.
The Agency for Protection of the Shore and for Protection and Management of the Shore of Tunisia, which is an agency that is under the mentorship of the Ministry of Environment, has implemented in partnership with KFW and BMZ and the government of Germany a program of protection of the shore and maritime areas, which is funded both by KFW and the Tunisian government.
Donc la Tunisie, son littoral s'étend sur à peu près 2300 km, dans 1300 km de littoral continental. Et comme partout dans le monde, vous le savez bien, le littoral subit des pressions anthropiques et des pressions naturelles. L'entropie, c'est dû vraiment à l'action de l'homme. Et surtout en Tunisie, nous avons le tourisme, puisque c'est un tourisme balnéaire, grâce à ces plages sableuses. Et l'industrie et l'implantation des hommes sont sur le littoral. 90% du tourisme et de l'industrie, c'est sur le littoral. Et puis, les changements climatiques qui ont un effet néfaste. Il y a des tempêtes beaucoup plus fréquentes et l'élévation du niveau de la mer font que ça a un impact négatif sur notre littoral.
Tunisia has 2,300 kilometers of continental shore that is under the pressure of both human and natural causes. And it's really important because Tunisia economy relies a lot on tourism, especially beach tourism and shore tourism. And it should be noted that most of the tourism and industry of Tunisia is on the shores, and because of the climate change, there are more frequent storms and more erosion that are creating negative impacts on the shores of Tunisia.
Et donc, comme j'avais dit, notre tourisme est balnéaire, et donc grâce à nos plages sableuses, nous avons à peu près 700 km de plages, dont 43% ont disparu sous l'effet de l'érosion marine. Donc presque 300 km ont disparu complètement. Et c'est comme ça. Vous avez voilà, quelques photos de notre côte érodée complètement.
Tunisian economy relies on tourism on the shores, on beaches, thanks to the sand on the beaches. Tunisia has 700 kilometers of beaches, and 43% of them have disappeared under the effect of erosion because of climate change.
Et donc, dans le cadre de la résilience et l'adaptation au changement climatique, nous avons monté un programme financé par la KFW en partie, par 75. Et nous avons atteint 5 phases de ce programme. Deux premières phases ont déjà été réalisées de 2013 à 2020. Une troisième phase, elle est en train d'être réalisée actuellement. Et une quatrième et une cinquième phase dont les contrats de financement ont été signés depuis cette année, début de cette année, et entreront en vigueur à partir de 2023. C'est un programme, les 5 phases, ils coûtent à peu près dans les 60 millions d'euros. 30 millions d'euros déjà réalisés et 30 millions d'euros qui vont être réalisés d'ici 2028.
So there are strategy of resilience and adaptation to climate change to be implemented, and there is this program funded by KFW. There are 5 phases of the program and the 2 first phases were covering the period between 2013 to 2020. The 3rd phase is being implemented at the moment, and for the 4th and 5th phase, the contracts has been signed, and they will enter into force from 2023. The total cost is 60 million euros, including 30 million euros that were already implemented. The rest will be implemented from now to 2028.
Voilà. Donc, le programme, les résultats attendus, bien sûr, c'est d'instaurer des ouvrages, c'est de l'ingénierie, hein, c'est d'instaurer des ouvrages de protection. Donc, nous avons déjà réalisé la protection de 30 km de 2013 à 2020. Et l'avenir, c'est 35 autres kilomètres d'ici 2028. Donc, les sites que vous voyez sur le slide ont déjà été réalisés. Je vais les citer par la suite un par un pour que vous voyez qu'est-ce qu'on a réalisé. Et deux grandes composantes qui ont fait la réussite de ce programme, je dirais, c'est que dans le cadre de ce programme, on a développé un concept de pérennisation. Avant, on faisait un projet, on l'oubliait. Aujourd'hui, on a créé le concept de pérennisation, c'est-à-dire on fait le suivi et on l'entretient par la mise en œuvre d'un programme de suivi par un système d'information géographique et par la mise en œuvre d'une commission de suivi et de pérennisation. La deuxième grand point dans ce programme, c'est le concept de l'approche participative, c'est-à-dire tout le monde intervient dans les résultats de ce programme. Depuis l'étude jusqu'à la mise en œuvre, on prend l'avis de tous pour trouver le meilleur compromis. C'est-à-dire depuis le bénéficiaire, de la population, les entreprises publiques et les privées, tout le monde y participe, donne son avis et on trouve les compromis pour les réaliser.
I'm just going to intervene to say we have about 25 minutes left on the event, and I really want to make sure every panelist, so maybe, I think this is a great presentation, maybe not going into the details of each site if it's possible.
So the results expected are protection works, and at the moment 30 kilometers have been built from 2013 to 2020. 35 other kilometers will be built by 2028. All the sites that have been implemented are listed on the slide, and they will be quoted afterwards. The main triggers of success of the project are two. The first one is the concept of durability. And in order to implement this concept, there is a monitoring thanks to geographical information system, but also maintenance with a committee of monitoring and durability. The second trigger for success of this program is the participatory approach. Everyone has the right to give its opinion on the program, including the population, private and public companies.
Merci. Bon, faute de temps, je vais passer très vite sur les réalisations maintenant. On a dit l'essentiel du programme. Maintenant, les réalisations, les résultats sont là. Le premier projet 2013-2014, les îles Qirqena, 11 km de protégés avec un coût de 12 millions de dinars. 1 euro égale 3 dinars. Donc, next one. Deuxième projet, c'est vraiment un projet phare parce qu'on a recréé une plage artificiellement sur 2 km par l'apport de 520 000 mètres cubes de sable par voie terrestre. Hein. Là, je dirais en Tunisie, même en Afrique, c'est une première de recréer une plage de 2 km. Donc on a protégé 2 km de côte par la recréation de la plage. The next one.
So the first project was on the island of Kirkena that was implementing between 2013 and 2014 for 12 million of dinar for 11 kilometers. The second one is a first in the whole African continent, is recreating a beach, an artificial beach of 2 kilometers by transporting 520,000 cubic meter of sand on the site.
Thank you. Next one. C'est le projet de Rafraf. Au cours des travaux. Next one. Le troisième projet, c'est la protection de littoral de Sousse Nord. On a protégé 4,5 km de littoral sur 4 municipalités avec un coût de 12 millions de dinars tunisiens. Next one. Next one. On voit quelques sites de Sousse Nord avant travaux, comment elles étaient érodées, après travaux, comment on les a réhabilitées, des zones touristiques, recréation de plages, des falaises protégées par des cavaliers, de différentes techniques pour chaque site, sa technique est adaptée à chaque site.
So the different examples that were listed is the first one, the protection of the littoral of Rafat. The other one is a protection of the shore of north-south, which actually has a length of 4.5 kilometers, which is covering 4 municipalities and has a cost of 12 million dinar. And on the last slide, there are a few examples of before and after works and how touristic areas have been protected and also hills that were protected from the erosion.
Next one. Le projet de Soliman, 6,5 km de côte protégée sur 2 municipalités avec un coût de 23 millions de dinars. Différentes techniques sur le même site, différentes techniques pour différents besoins. Donc on voit des photos avant le projet, pendant les travaux, après le projet. Next one. Sur ce projet, nous avons même enlevé d'anciennes protections qui ont été érigées dans les années 80. Ils ont bien été protégés, mais ils ont eu un impact durant les années qui ont fait accentuer l'érosion à côté. Et puis, dans la protection elle-même, il y a eu un impact négatif aussi. Des odeurs de diabande, des algues, ainsi de suite. Donc, on a enlevé ces ouvrages et on les a remplacés par la création d'une plage. Vous voyez là sur les photos satellites, avant, pendant les travaux et après.
There is now a focus on the site of Suleiman, which is actually works on 6.5 kilometers of shore on 2 municipalities for a cost of 23 million dinars. A lot of techniques have been implementing, and on the pictures we can see before, during, and after. What is interesting on this site is that they had to remove protections that were built that in the 80s that were actually exacerbating the erosion on the sites and that were creating areas with proliferation of algae and others. And on the in replacement, beach has been created.
Nous avons next one. Nous avons aussi utilisé des techniques douces, c'est les haies brise-vent pour la réhabilitation des dunes côtières. Donc nous avons, dans le cadre de ce programme, déjà protégé 4 km de dunes réhabilitées par les haies brise-vent. C'est une technique importée de France, les ganivelles. Mais maintenant, avec la KFW, on a réalisé une étude pour remplacer ces haies brise-vent avec du produit local. Et nous sommes en train de monter une filière de fabrication de haies brise-vent en Tunisie pour pouvoir encore protéger beaucoup plus de kilomètres de dunes.
There are also the implementation of soft techniques with, for instance, the construction of windbreaking fences for creating 4 kilometers of dune. It was a French expertise, and now there is the creation of a local value chain in order to be autonomous on the production of the windbreaking fences.
Next one. Voilà, le projet est en cours maintenant, c'est la troisième phase du programme, c'est à Rantawi Sud, 2,5 km de protection, avec un coût de 20 millions de dinars tunisiens, je rappelle 1 euro égale 3 dinars,2. Et nous sommes à 50% d'avancement du projet. Sur la photo satellite, on voit bien qu'on a déjà réalisé 2 brise-lames immergées. Et après ça, on va recharger les plages. On a 4 brise-lames à réaliser et rechargement par 300 000 mètres cubes de sable pour recréer les plages, puisque c'est une zone par excellence touristique Krantawi Sud.
In South Kantawi, the protection is has a length of 2.5 kilometers for an amount of 20 million dinars. At the moment, the project has a progress of 50%, and they are already building fences on the side for the benefit of this touristic area.
Donc, next one. Donc, je finis maintenant, je viens à la fin, les perspectives d'avenir. Donc, on a réalisé avec la KFW une grande étude qui a coûté 1,3 million d'euros pour la recherche de gîtes de sable marin. Parce que jusqu'à maintenant, on recharge nos plages par voie terrestre en utilisant de sable de carrière. Bien sûr, avec des caractéristiques bien déterminées. On a recherché dans 50 carrières pour trouver le sable adéquat à rechercher nos plages. Aujourd'hui, avec la KFW, on a réalisé une étude de recherche de gîtes sous-marins pour pouvoir recharger nos plages par voie maritime. Parce qu'on ne peut pas se permettre aussi des centaines et des centaines, et je dirais des milliers de camions. C'est effet carbone, impact sur les routes, impact de toute nature. Donc la voie maritime beaucoup simple et beaucoup plus rapide. Aujourd'hui, on a une étude, on a des résultats et on espère les exploiter dans nos prochains projets.
And now with KFW, we are implementing a study of 1.3 million euros that is researching new sites to source the sand, submarine sites, because at the moment the sand is coming from carries within the land, and it's not sustainable in terms of carbon footprint and use of the roads. So now new sources underwater are being sought under this study.
Les ganivelles, j'en ai parlé, on va produire les ganivelles par des produits tunisiens. Troisième point, c'est le démarrage du PPLT 4, ça sera début d'année prochaine pour protéger 17 km par 24,6 millions d'euros. Le contrat de financement est signé entre le gouvernement tunisien et le gouvernement allemand. Et puis, nous sommes à la recherche d'un complément de financement, et c'est le mot de la fin, parce que nous avons déjà 15 millions d'euros de la part de la KFW dans le cadre des recyclages de la dette, et nous avons besoin entre 15 à 25 millions d'euros complémentaires pour pouvoir réaliser cette 5e phase. On attend ce complément de financement pour démarrer. Et puis, next. Et je vous remercie. Un littoral pour toujours. Ça, c'est absolument une photo avant, après. Vous voyez Les arbres, là, ils ont été érodés, après on l'a protégé par la création de plages.
And now to end on it, on the phase 4 and 5. On the phase 4, for the moment, it's going to be implemented. It's for protection of 17 kilometers for an amount of 26 million euros that KFW is providing. For the phase 5, there is already a debt swap of 15 million euro from the German government KFW, but a complement of 15 to 25 million euros are sought to make it happen. And the last slide is a presentation of a success story of coastline protection.
Merci beaucoup pour la traduction.
Thank you so much. What struck me in your presentation, of course, you highlighted the factors of success, sustainability, including working on local value chains, monitoring, including with GIS technologies, and the participatory approach. I would add a third as a kind of with an external perspective. I was really struck also about how you showed that each site required different techniques, different solutions, different technologies, and I think that's a big lesson, of course, that adaptation always needs to. You can have a national program, but adaptation always needs to be tailored to the requirements of the specific sites and communities. A big thank you to Actica, because translation is not her job, although you did it seamlessly. So thank you for that. So I loved how we were able to zero in on the specific project of coastline protection. We'll now take a step back and look at a national adaptation policy in a neighboring country in Morocco, and how a public development bank and financiers can contribute to its implementation. So I'm going to introduce Mr. Hamid Tawfiki. Thank you. I have the pleasure to see you again on the panel after our first conversation a few days ago on the French Pavilion. Mr. Tawfiki is the CEO of CDG Capital, a subsidiary of the Moroccan Caisse des Dépôts, public development bank, and a member of the IDFC network that welcomes us tonight on the pavilion. So again, if you, I'll hand you the floor to walk us through how Morocco adapts to the impact of climate change, the different strategic plans and public policies that underscore this adaptation ambition, and how financiers like CDG supports this program. You're still on mute, Mr. Tawfiki. You're still on mute. If you can just unmute.
You can hear me now?
Yes, perfect. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I don't have any PowerPoint presentation, so but my presentation will be threefold. I will give some elements and a few data on current situation in Morocco. Second point, I will cover the national water plan, and I will finish with what I call the key challenges that we need, in fact, to rise up to these challenges in order to solve the conundrum of water subject in Morocco. So as you've seen and listened, that all countries, in fact, around the Mediterranean suffer from water stress. Morocco, obviously, is no exception. So you have a situation today. Morocco is ranked, I think, in 22nd most water stress country in the world, according to WRI. We have also specificity, which is that Morocco is a country that has historically depended on agriculture, which represents 14% of the GDP, but close to 40% of employment. So this is something which is important, the impact on the GDP, the impact also on the volatility of the GDP. It's something which is omnipresent in our mind, and this is something we are living with it. Morocco is a water-scarce country confronted with decreased groundwater reserve and a strong dependence on rain-fed agriculture. We have only 15% of total agricultural lands is irrigated. This results in inefficient water use and management. I will come back to this. And due to climate changes, rainfall in Morocco is predicted to decline by as much as 50% by the year 2050. So it shows the increasing risk of drought. So the current situation, and just to give you some a few data on current situation in Morocco. So we have today the volume of water reservoir of dam decreases. And when you compare, in fact, July 2018 to July 2022, so we have this reservoir ratio move from 62% to 24%. The cumulative rainfall decreased also from 136 millimeter in 2019, to 87 millimeters recorded for the current year. And the other point is that we have in the year of 21, which is in fact the fourth warmest year since 1981. And the last element, the continuous decline of groundwater level by 2 to 3 meters. So just to show you how severe, in fact, the situation, in fact, in Morocco. So in Morocco, water management is really vital. We have the situation of the climatic and hydrological conditions that are extremely fragile. And second aspect is that you have the spatial and temporal irregularity in water availability. You add to this the increasing impact of drought and the ever-increasing pressure of water demand. So all of this make the water management something which is very, very important in Morocco. As a consequence, Morocco has put forward an ambitious water investment plan for 2020 to 2050. This national water plan aims to close the water demand supply gap, to respond to the problem of water stress in the future, and to face the effect of climate change. So the new water policy will be based on the following axes. First is accelerate the construction of dam. I think in the plan we have something like around 100 more than 150. We have also to implement the water transfer projects from Cebu Basin to Bourgrag Basin, and this is something which is key and urgent. The third one is to ensure the interconnection of hydraulic system within and between basins. We need to strengthen I think in the plan and the action that is now going on to strengthen the seawater desalination. Desalination is something which is very, very important. And we CDG, we participated in the first largest, in fact, desalination in Agadir. And we have now in the pipe with the government project in Casablanca, another one in Safi, another one in Jadida. So this is a huge program. And we have also in the access within the water policy to develop the reuse of wastewater. We need also to ensure water efficiency through the improvement of the yield of the drinking water supply and irrigation network to fight against waste and water losses. And the last but not the least is to ensure communication and awareness program for consumer and water. So the measure regarding infrastructure, in fact, investments, I think it cannot suffice. It needs to be paired with additional soft measure. And this is something which is key. So it's important to continue, because Morocco started a long time ago to invest in water infrastructure, and we will continue doing so. But we need to add to this some very important soft measure. And I believe that going forward, that we will have to rise up to, I try to summarize into 4 key challenges. The first one is to, how can I say, to reflect on the true value of the water resources. I think, and incentivizing a more efficient and rational use and management of the resources. Just to give you some elements but to see the importance of this challenge. So you have the selling price of drinking water in Morocco does not cover the total cost of production. Current pricing does not include the cost of storage in dams. This according to the national water utilities. So when we see the mapping, for example, of the drinking water consumers, 85% of Morocco are those with very, very low income. So they don't have sufficient means to pay the real price covering the full cost of production. And also, according to the Moroccan water utility, while the cost of the distribution per cubic meters of drinking water is around 15 dirham, so it's the Moroccan utility, in fact, sell it between 2.5 and 3 dirhams. So the differential, as you can imagine, is borne by the state budget. So the question is really to encourage citizens to optimize their consumption in a context marked by the decline of reserve in dams. And I think what we're trying to do is, on one hand, to maintain the subsidy for disadvantaged families or very low income, and on the other hand, think on how we can introduce indexed tariff that vary according to the evolution of product cost. So it is not an easy exercise, believe me, but I think we have to have a solution and we have to have the balance and to move forward. Second challenge is, I think, the way we manage the relationship between water and energy. I think managing this relationship is of paramount importance for development in Morocco. The interdependency between water and energy have become a fundamental aspect of Morocco development. Just to give you a taste, and I think it's the case in a lot of countries, but in Morocco, you have this relationship which is very, very close between the water and the energy. So water is used in all phases of energy and electricity production. Electricity production, hydro represented at that time, I think more than 20%. Now we are talking about 10% or 8%, which is something also important, and is a clean energy. The second, while energy is also needed to extract, transport, and distribute water, to treat wastewater before it is discharged with the environment or used. So as Morocco moves forward, new technology that strengthen the interface between energy and water, example, unconventional water resource, like desalination, and green hydrogen. And for this point, I believe that it's important to carefully define the right balance between the country aspiration as a clean energy champion and the need to manage its scarce water resources to drive sustainable and equitable development. Managing the relationship between water and energy is at the heart of Moroccan development challenge, I believe. The third challenge is managing, in fact, the water agricultural nexus. I think the objective behind this challenge is really to avoid what the economists call the Givan paradox. Technical solution that has been developed within the agriculture has failed to reduce pressure on water resources. Although conversion to modern on-farm irrigation equipment can improve water productivity, it does not systematically reduce irrigation water consumption. Clearly, it's because in the absence of binding water consumption limit, farmer with drip irrigation system tends to intensify their production by switching to high value added products. So these need to be rethink in order to have a better management of this nexus because it is very important. We all know that the water, energy, and food are at the basis of the sustainable development. The way we manage it, the way we converge and we take the right path. And this is for us, these two components, water, energy relationship, and water agriculture is key. The fourth challenge, and not the least, is really to maximize private climate investment in this team, in these projects. And we all know that we are able, for example, to attract private investment for mitigation projects, and we face a lot of difficulty when we are talking about adaptation. And with adaptation, water is an important element. So I think it means that we need to develop more, how can I say, blended finance, develop PPPs, develop financial engineering to be able, in fact, to finance correctly these projects. We know that some sub-subjects within the water issue that are now attracting private investors. Desalination, we were able, in fact, to structure it and attract investors in equity or in debt. We are also working on a huge project now related to interconnection between the scene and we are dealing with the private bank or private investors, in fact, to come with us in this project. So to conclude, that I think
I'm going to ask you to just give us your concluding remarks.
No, I finished. I will say there's just one word. I think for us to tackle this issue and to rise up to the key challenges, I think this is to succeed in combining the public and private in this project, and the last but not the least is to succeed in compiling, in fact, the technical engineering, the financial engineering, the economical engineering, and the social engineering. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I learned so much personally, and it's hard to know that you're actually originally a financier and not a water expert, given the breadth and the.
Sorry, I will just to tell you one
Please.
thing, which is I'm an engineer who turned badly to be an investment banker.
Okay.
So don't tell my man that I'm a banker.
That's the origin story then. But yeah, and I loved your reflection on the four challenges, around pricing adequately the water resource, around the nexus of water, energy, and food, and of course then the financing and how we leverage and how we can find innovative ways of financing this sector. I'm going to hand the floor now to Atika Ben Maid, who's the head of natural resources and sustainable finance at AFD in Egypt. Atika, unfortunately, you have the very hard task of wrapping up this panel in 2 minutes. So maybe not the presentation that you had planned, but maybe giving us reactions as to the projects that we saw, whether in Jordan, in Tunisia, in Morocco, as I said, around the whole draws of this shark of the water sector and adaptation challenges in the MENA-region.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I will not go on the presentation. A lot has been said already in terms of adaptation in water and wastewater. Maybe two concepts: the water-food energy nexus, because I think that's somewhere where we all agree that is really key. And traditionally, The water engineers and the irrigation engineers are in two different worlds, and they are not really working together. And in countries that are really scarce, like the ones in the MENA region, that is needed to look at the whole water cycle. And in this sense, maybe I would just say one word on an Egyptian project, because we're in Egypt, for the Gabalas Far wastewater treatment plant. It's the biggest of Africa, the biggest of the MENA region, and one of the biggest of the world. It is actually serving 12 million people of Cairo at the moment. It's a capacity for the engineers of 2.5 million cubic meter per day. We are going to finance the third phase that includes both mitigation and adaptation perspective. Mitigation because we have an on-site renewable energy production to reduce the energy consumption, but also the carbon footprint of the project, and through the production of biogas from the sludge, but also adaptation, because there is the reuse of treated wastewater. We treat the water at a level that is safe enough to be reused downstream the plant. And that's a really great example of how we can optimize the water energy food nexus, which is also in line with an initiative that the COP presidency, Egyptian presidency, has launched these days. So that's a first aspect. The second aspect that really strikes me as part of the discussion is what we call water security. Because another thing that sometimes we forget as water engineers is the protection against catastrophe. We always talk about extreme events like scarcity in our countries, but actually water scarcity also includes all water-borne catastrophes that could be flood. And to give another Egyptian example, we have the hotspot of one of the IPCC hotspots, which is the delta that is actually having damages from saline intrusions that is having impact on agriculture and food production. So yeah, the two aspects is really the nexus and the water security, to see the adaptation in the water and wastewater sector beyond only drinking and wastewater. I think that's really something that we covered today. And the cross-cutting one is always the same, is we are in countries where water is subsidized by the government. How do we finance not only the CapEx, but the OpEx afterwards to ensure the durability of our infrastructure? And I know it was a recurrent question we had with Stefan when we were working together in Jordan. So that's still a question today.
Okay, if the technical team will still give us 2 minutes, if it's possible, I'd love to just open the floor up again for last word. So really, in 1 minute, again, this was not so much thought of as a discussion, but rather as a kind of showcasing of experiences and sharing of experiences. But I'd love to hear from our different panelists if there's any reaction or kind of word of wisdom that you want the audience here and who are watching online to take home, or reactions to your co-panelists. So maybe I'll start with Stefan, Hamid, and Mohamed. Stefan?
Thank you very much, Temos. Well, just to say 2 sentences, I think first of all, the discussion sometimes adaptation is forgotten in the climate discussion, but it's so important to be just, to be fair and justice with the developing countries, to engage from industrialized countries in this topic of adaptation, and water is so important in this topic, and we see so much possibilities to tackle adaptation. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hamid, you have the floor. We can't hear you. I don't know if you're on mute again.
Okay, sorry, you can hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. As we all know, there is no renewable for water. So water is life. So I think we need to do what it takes, in fact, to find solution, and we stop, I think, trying to justify, in fact, that it's difficult to make it. But this is my wise advice.
And call to action. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Merci. Le mot de la fin, nous, à l'agence, à la PAL, nous luttons contre la force de la mer. Il n'y a pas plus fort dans le water sector. Si le niveau de la mer continue à s'élever exponentiellement, qu'est-ce que nous allons faire? On dit que d'ici 2100, il y aura une élévation de 1 mètre, mais je crois qu'il y aura même 1 à 2 mètres. Nous, pour l'instant, on modélise nos ouvrages par rapport à 0,5 à 1 mètre. Mais les nouvelles études, elles disent que ça va être jusqu'à 2 mètres. Qu'est-ce qu'on va faire? Il faut des moyens énormes.
So them at the Apple, they're fighting against the strongest strength that there is, which strengthens fourth that there is, which is the rise of the sea level. And for the moment, all the works have been designed for an increase of sea level of 0.5 to 1 meter. And now the latest studies are saying that it might go even further, up to even 2 meters. So what are we going to do? How are we going to adapt? I think in terms of like key takeaway, and that was a topic that was in a lot of the panels we participated, is how do we finance adaptation? Every time we are talking about financing, we know that public financing is not enough. We need to think about private financing. And when we need to think about private financing, there is, of course, we are on IDFC, the Public Development Banks. And I'm sure we are all aware of the Finance in Common initiative that gathers all the public development banks of the world in order to have joint objectives of sustainable development. And there is a sub-initiative under Finance in Common called Water Finance Coalition that is co-shared by AFD and Panobras, the Mexican public bank. And here again, it's to try to gather as much non-sovereign financing as possible, because adaptation needs will go beyond what the states can do. And we need other actors to be involved.
So check out the check out the Water Finance Coalition. Okay, and on that note, let me thank our panelists. Thank you for joining us tonight. For those of you who may still have questions, Mohamed Ali Torki, Atika Ben Marid are here with us and can answer questions you may have regarding Tunisia or AFD's activities in the sector. And we have Barbara Schnell